Hello, how are you?
I'm all good, Simon. How's
Asking,
yourself?
what's your name?
It's Mickey Kalisto.
And how old are you, Mickey?
I'm 28.
And where are you from?
Sunderland.
You saw the performance. A quiet guy walks onto the Britain's Got Talent stage, and then a voice comes out that seems to channel a rock god. But what if I told you the journey to that moment involved opera, psychedelic rock bands, and a complete transformation you have to see to believe? The story of Mickey Kalisto isn't just about a great voice. It's about how Michael Spence from Sunderland became a cosmic pop supernova. And what the show didn't tell you is even more interesting than the performance itself. Every so often, a show like Britain's Got Talent gets a contestant who just doesn't fit the mold. In the show's 18th season, that person was Mickey Kalisto. From the moment he stepped into the spotlight, he had this quiet, almost shy mystique about him. He was polite, charming, and didn't come with a flashy costume or a big, dramatic backstory. He was just a man from Sunderland with two dreams: play Wembley Stadium one day, and more immediately, win enough money to buy his grandmother a stair lift. Then the music started. He chose to sing Queen's Who Wants to Live Forever, a song so connected to Freddie Mercury that even attempting it is a massive risk. But what happened next was pure television magic. A voice with haunting power and incredible control filled the room. It wasn't a copy, it was a tribute. He channeled the spirit and emotion of the song with a sincerity that was just staggering. The judges Simon Cowell, Amanda Holden, Alicia Dixon, and Bruno Tonioli on a panel that also featured KSI that season were visibly stunned. The audience was on its feet. In just a few minutes, Mickey Kalisto became one of the most talked about acts of the year. But this viral moment was no overnight success. It was the result of a long, weird, and fascinating journey. To really get Mickey Kalisto, you have to go way beyond the BGT stage. You have to go back to a kid in the north of England who first discovered his voice in a cathedral, struggle through teenage angst, play in experimental rock bands, and even grind out a 9-to-5 shift in a phone shop. The man the world met is a complex, brilliant artist who built his identity from scratch. This is the story of his origins, the secret behind his cosmic stage name, and the music he was making long before he ever faced Simon Cowell, long before anyone heard Freddie Mercury in his voice. The sound that shaped Mickey Kalisto's childhood was much older. Opera. Growing up in Sunderland, his first musical heroes weren't rock stars, but the choristers of the nearby Durham Cathedral. Imagine being a little kid, maybe 6 or 7, and hearing that for the first time. The cathedral is this massive, ancient fortress of stone where the acoustics are unreal. The choir's voices seem to fill every inch of the space with a sound that's both epic and deeply personal. For young Michael Spence, that's his real name. This wasn't just music, it was magic, and it wasn't just a phase. According to the story he tells, while other kids were out playing, Michael was diving into classical music. He didn't have a formal tutor at first, he just listened, absorbed, and imitated. He basically taught himself to sing opera by modeling what he heard from the cathedral choir and on recordings. That's an incredible detail. Opera is one of the most technically difficult styles of singing out there, and for a kid to not only love it but actively teach himself shows the raw talent he was working with. This early training was fundamental. Opera didn't just teach him the mechanics of his voice. It taught him how to tell a story with it. He learned how to channel love, loss, and drama using nothing but his vocal cords. This classical foundation became his secret weapon, giving his future pop songs a level of control and depth that would make him stand out. Around the same time, another obsession took hold: space. When he was 6, his dad bought him a book about the solar system. He was just as captivated by the moons of Jupiter and the rings of Saturn as he was by the sounds of the cathedral. This mix of interests, the celestial sound of opera and the silent beauty of the cosmos, created a rich inner world for a quiet kid from Sunderland. It was the first chapter in the making of an artist who was always going to be a little different. For any gifted young singer, puberty is the great unknown. When your voice breaks, it can feel like you've lost everything. For Michael Spence, it was a genuinely tough moment. The high, pure voice he had worked so hard to train was suddenly gone, replaced by something he didn't recognize. The very thing that gave him his confidence was lost. He could have given up on music right there. Instead, this crisis forced him to reinvent himself. Since he couldn't look back to the world of opera, he had to find a new direction. And that's when he discovered a new kind of theatrical power. That's when he discovered Queen. His gateway drug was a school production of the musical We Will Rock You. Sitting in that audience, it was like a lightning bolt. This wasn't the reserved, holy music of the cathedral. This was loud, defiant, and completely electrifying. And at the center of it all was the spirit of Freddie Mercury. Freddie became his new guiding star. First, there was the voice. Freddie could go from a rock growl to an operatic falsetto in a heartbeat. For a kid who had just lost his high range but still had that musical foundation, Freddie's voice showed him what was possible for a male singer. It could be both powerful and delicate, masculine and feminine, but it was more than that. As a young, queer person figuring things out, seeing Freddie command a stage with such unapologetic androgynous charisma was life-changing. Freddie didn't just sing. He created a world on stage where everyone was invited to be free. This deeply resonated with Michael, who was starting to figure out his own identity. The quiet kid who loved opera was discovering the flamboyant performer inside. This set him on a new path. He taught himself piano, working his way through Queen's complex songs. He studied Freddie's performances, learning about phrasing, power, and how to connect with an audience. The move from the cathedral to We Will Rock You wasn't just a change. In taste, it was a shift in who he was. He was learning that his voice breaking wasn't the end, but the explosive start of something new, fueled by this new fire. Michael headed to Manchester for University, a city with a legendary music scene. That was the perfect place for a young artist to experiment. He joined his first proper band, a psychedelic rock outfit. This was his real-world rock education, moving from studying his heroes to actually creating original music with other people playing keyboards and synths. He got deep into the sounds of Pink Floyd, the Beatles, and modern psych rock bands like Tame Impala. This is where he learned to build entire worlds with sound, using synthesizers to create swirling, cosmic atmospheres. It was a long way from opera or Queen, but it shared that same sense of ambition and epic scale. But after university, reality hit. The dream of a music career doesn't always pay the bills, so he found himself working a day job to support his passion. For Michael, that meant working in a phone shop. This is the part of the story that doesn't make the highlight reel, but it's one of the most important. It's the grind. Imagine the disconnect. By day, dealing with customer complaints and selling phone contracts. And by night, dreaming of cosmic soundscapes and playing for huge crowds. That kind of double life can either kill your creative spark or make it burn even brighter. For Michael, it was definitely the latter. This period is what makes his story so relatable. Anyone who's ever worked a job they weren't passionate about, while dreaming of something more, can see themselves in his shoes. It shows you his dedication. Think about it. Finishing a long, draining day at work, and then, instead of just crashing on the couch, going home to write and record music. This was when he was quietly piecing together all his influences. The control of opera, the power of Queen, the textures of psych rock into something that was uniquely his. The phone shop wasn't a detour. It was the struggle that made his eventual breakthrough feel like a true liberation. The switch from Michael Spence, the guy from the phone shop, to Mickey Kalisto, the cosmic pop artist, was more than just a name. Change. It was an act of creation. The name itself tells you everything you need to know. Callisto is one of Jupiter's moons, something he'd been obsessed with since he was a kid. By naming himself after it, he was signaling that his music was meant to be otherworldly and escape. The persona of Mickey Kalisto was a way to embrace the theatrical, gender-fluid energy that he might have felt he had to hide. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place not in a studio, but on a dance floor. In 2019, he was at a rave at a Manchester venue called the White Hotel. Dressed in a cheap ski suit, he had an epiphany. In the hypnotic energy of the rave, he was introduced to Italo disco. With its driving synth bass lines and futuristic melodies, it was the missing link that connected all of his influences. That night changed everything. It gave him a new confidence and showed him how to fuse the theatricality of Queen, the ambient sound of psych rock, and the pulse of electronic music into one cohesive sound. This was the sound of Mickey Kalisto. With this new vision, he started creating music that was all his own. In 2023, he released his debut EP, Homospace, a 6-track introduction to his world. The title alone is brilliant, mixing home and space to suggest a safe, euphoric place for outsiders. It was a blend of synth-pop, glam, and raw honesty. He was building a fan base and making waves in the Liverpool music scene, playing sold-out shows and getting a reputation as a truly unique artist. Michael Spence had successfully transformed into Mickey Kalisto, an artist with a clear vision and a universe of his own. The stage was finally set for the rest of the world to tune in. After years of grinding away in private, Mickey Kalisto's moment finally came on the biggest platform you can imagine, Britain's Got Talent. His audition was a perfect example of how to shatter expectations. He walked out looking calm and modest, charmed the judges with his politeness, and made that sweet promise about buying his Nan a stair lift. At that point, everyone was probably thinking, "What a nice lad, I hope he can sing." No one was ready for what came next. His song choice was incredibly bold, Queen's Who Wants to Live Forever. It's a song filled with so much emotion and is so difficult to sing that it's a massive gamble. As the haunting intro began, he stood mostly still, closed his eyes, and just let his voice do the work, and what a voice it was. He started with a controlled tenderness that pulled you in, but as the song built, his voice swelled with unbelievable power and passion. His operatic training gave him flawless control, but the performance was anything but technical. It was pure, raw emotion. You could feel his connection to the song's tragedy and longing. The second he hit the full force of the chorus, the energy in the room completely changed. Amanda Holden looked captivated, while Simon Cowell, who's usually hard to impress, had a look of genuine shock on his face. But perhaps the most moved was Bruno Tonioli, who had known Freddie Mercury. He praised the performance, noting Mickey had the same kind of connection to the music's dramatic core. When the last note faded, the audience exploded into a standing ovation. The judges' praise was universal. Alicia Dixon called it sensational, while Simon praised his originality, saying he would be remembered. He sailed through with 4 yeses. In the semifinals, he took another big risk with Queen's Somebody to Love. While the judges' feedback was a bit more mixed this time, his passion was clear. He stood by his performance, reminding everyone that he's an artist who writes his own music, too. But that first audition had already done its job. It became one of the most watched moments of the season, cementing Mickey Kalisto as a breakout star. Mickey Kalisto's journey to the BGT stage shows you what an artist's path is really like. That one incredible audition wasn't just luck. It was the result of a lifetime of influences coming together. From the kid in Sunderland who loved opera, to the teenager who found himself in Queen, from the psychedelic rocker to the guy working in a phone shop, every step was essential to creating the artist he is today. He's a perfect example of authenticity. He managed to weave together classical discipline, glam rock theatrics, and synth-pop euphoria into something that is completely his own. The Mickey Kalisto persona is more than a stage name. It's a celebration of queer identity, big imagination, and the power of being yourself. Even though he didn't win Britain's Got Talent, he won something much bigger, a national platform and the public's attention. So what's next? He's said to be working on new music, with fans eagerly awaiting the next chapter in the Homospace universe. His ambitions are just as big as his music. That dream of playing Wembley Stadium is still very much alive and feels more possible than ever. But he also has other wonderfully Callisto-esque goals, from opening his own nightclub to one day actually going to space. He wants to create real-world spaces that reflect the inclusive, imaginative power of his art. Mickey's story is a great reminder that the most interesting artists are never an overnight success. They're built on resilience, dedication, and a fearless commitment to their vision. He's more than the man who sang Queen on TV. He's a songwriter, a producer, and a world builder. That audition wasn't the end of his story, it was just the launch sequence. So, what do you think of Mickey Kalisto's wild journey? Are you excited to see what he does next? Let us know in the comments. And if you learned something new, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories behind the artists you love.